we went into today kind of thinking that, there's not much to say about this movie because if there's a way to describe this, it's aggressively mid. Um, it's like if Cocaine Bear had none of the self-awareness and actually thought it had something important to say. It really doesn't know what it wants to be. It's just everything it's trying to do, you can find it being done better elsewhere. As far as like, you want a violent creature horror comedy, you know, go to the aforementioned Cocaine Bear. You want a send up of Big Pharma, try Common Side Effects. You want a skewering of the rich, go watch Saltburn. You want this father-daughter like bonding movie, go watch last year's Ghostlight. What sets these movies apart from Death of the Unicorn is just kind of a laser focus on exactly what they want to do, exactly the message they want to convey. And Death of a Unicorn is it's scatterbrained. It's a shotgun blast of these really like boring, time-worn ideas. This would have found a better home as like the streaming slop of the week. The type of movie that's on the Netflix like charts for like 48 hours and then you never see it again and nobody ever talks about it again. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck. This is episode 64.
64.
What happens when a film producer with a 15-year career suddenly decides he has artistic ambitions beyond the shepherding of films to the silver screen? Well, friends, it can be a dangerous mix. So enter Alex Sharfman. He's been putting in the work in Hollywood, and the man has been given carte blanche to make the movie of his dreams. It is the man's first film, but will it be his last? We're going to be getting into Death of a Unicorn a little bit later on in the show, but first, we've got a big day of film news. We have a watch list that includes the finale of the show that everyone's still reeling from, and of course, bringing up the rear of the show, we have the Mentionables. Before we get into it, please do throw us a like or a sub if you like what we're doing here on the channel. But otherwise, Chuck, anything else before we get into it?
Well, I guess it's not on the list at all, but this is just something I feel compelled to say. After, because I've kind of brought it up before, but it's like, we're a nobody channel. We're hobbyists. We're not gaming the system. We're not making shorts. But by God, I am just like learning so much about how, people who do film and TV commentary, they are the slop. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I'm just ragging on people. I'm just being a negative Nancy over here. But between like looking at how people in our ecosystem approached a show like Severance and a movie like Death of a Unicorn, it makes me question what we're even doing here. You know what I mean? Because they're like we kind of like we're this little pebble that is like sitting against this prevailing stream of just endless present nonsense. Because it's just and also in part this is a reference to true crime stuff. Because like my Mentionable is going to kind of cover something I talked about before in the true crime realm, and to see how invested they get, and then just how quickly they move on. I don't know. It's like there's just not a lot of introspective and retrospection that happens in this sphere, which is saddening to me. But I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing, people. Like, you should be doing better. I know not everybody can be Thomas Flight or, God, what's that one dude of Stories of Old, I think is another guy that I really like. Not every, and we don't even do that. We're pretty loosey-goosey with how we present things. And, and when we do our minisode, like essays stuff, we're not trying to be more than we are. But the way that everyone's commodifying themselves, it makes me really scared for the present we live in and the future we're going to have. Like, that's all that's my soapbox moment for the day. like before I get back on it later. But this
Well,
was,
to
yeah,
to seg us a bit here, we're about to talk about what is probably the biggest film announcement, the biggest movie mic drop announcement of the year. And people talked about it for like 24 hours and then it's done.
yeah,
Like it's done. The people are done talking about this. Let's move on. The movie comes out in like a year and a half. We're done. And so yeah, that's really funny.
yeah. But speaking of that, of course, what we are referring to is the endless stream of different, like movie set actor chairs, those little foldable things with people's names on them so they know who can sit in them, that was used by, Marvel and Disney to basically say, hey, this is who's you could look forward to seeing in our new Avengers movie. And the present, just to focus on that right away, was this an effective way to basically create hype for a movie like this? Like, why not save this moment for Hall H? Like, is this the end of the
Mm.
credibility and like the sanctity of San Diego Comic-Con that we're seeing? Like, it's irrelevant now.
Well, I would hope that they have like a trailer or something for Hall H because, that would be around the time that Comic-Con is, that'll be about a year before the movie comes out. So hopefully they have like a teaser trailer or something. But I mean, as far as their metrics go, I think this was effective because the thing that you're seeing now, that now that we're like about a day and a half, 2 days removed from this happening, is that like Marvel's out there and they're throwing out all the numbers about this video. Like uh I think what they said today was the announcement video has now clocked 275 million views over its entire like 5.5 hour runtime that it was live, and like 3.1 million social media impressions. And so if those are the metrics by which you count success, I guess that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's not really how we measure success here.
No. No. And because ultimately, like, what is the message? What are you delivering here? And yeah, it's cool. Thor's coming back. Didn't expect that. There was an interview that Hemsworth gave during like Love and Thunder's rollout where, a press person was like, and by the way, at the end of the movie it says Thor will return. And that was news to him because, like, from that, whatever that experience was like making that movie, he didn't really feel inspired to come back so outwardly. And yet here we are. It's gonna be happening. We have Thor, but we don't have Hulk. We don't have Spider-Man. We don't have Star-Lord. Like, the list of who isn't gonna be in this movie is almost just as long as the people who are gonna be in it. Is this a mistake? Are they fucking up by, like how can you explain like Smart Hulk not being around to deal with Doctor Doom?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like they're sort of slyly like remedying some problems, sort of one by one with this. And um it seems like there's three things. I mean, basically, Doctor Doom is an infinitely more interesting and iconic villain than Kang. And so, I mean, basically, Kang's not going to be a thing anymore. We're doing Doctor Doom. And then on top of that, Destin Daniel Cretton was basically told to like fuck off to the next Spider-Man movie. And then, he's been replaced now by the Russo brothers, who, despite what their more recent output of original movies that aren't very good, they've proven that they can handle something like this. But the most fascinating thing about this whole announcement to me is that it feels like Marvel is essentially they're sending the message that this TV shit doesn't matter. And the reason why I say that is because, who are these characters that are missing from this announcement? There's no She-Hulk. There's no Miss Marvel. There's no Agatha Harkness. There's no
True.
Daredevil. No Moon Knight. No Hawkeye. No Echo. Nobody from Secret Invasion. No Ironheart. The one big exception to that rule is Loki, which, just so happens to be their most successful TV show and the only one that even got a second season. So I feel as if the message they're sending is none of this TV shit matters anymore. We're gonna wipe the slate clean, and we know you want the actual Avengers. We know you want the Fantastic Four. We know you want the X-Men, and so I don't know. I think I have hope. I guess is what I'm saying because I hate all the TV stuff. The TV
Yeah.
stuff sucks. So.
Yeah. Like, but the cat's out of the bag. Like seeing Ian McKellen's name pop up, I was like elated, and at the same time, I'm like, oh, buddy, you shouldn't be doing this anymore. You know what I mean?
So old.
He's so old.
He's really
so,
old.
Like, why give the Matthew Vaughn First Class era characters such short shrift? I guess like the timeline doesn't quite match up. I understand maybe that's why not. But I mean, if you're playing fucky with the multiverse, you could pull any version of a character you want and you could cast any actor you want. So like why not when you have some of these actors more in the prime of their years? Why can't you have Michael Fassbender Magneto? Like why not?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you're totally correct about the multiverse thing. I mean, at this point, they can do whatever they want and justify it really in any way they want because of the existence of the multiverse. But I guess, I mean, the only thing I can think of is just because those characters, the X-Men characters, they do eventually grow into their older counterparts, and the older counterparts are the ones that they've been planting seeds for because of course you have Patrick Stewart showing up in the last Doctor Strange, and I don't know if you probably I'm guessing you never saw the Marvels, right?
Never. I haven't.
No, okay.
I haven't even seen Captain Marvel. Like
Yeah,
that was deep into my boycott Marvel, era, and I haven't gone back. Like
the Marvels, the end credit scene for the Marvels is basically Monica Rambeau has her like universe hopping powers now, and she basically excuse me, she goes to the X-Men mansion from the Fox universe, and then it's the sort of time period in which she's in is basically like the early 2000s X Mansion from the Fox universe, and then Kelsey Grammer shows up as Beast in that post-credit scene also. So I'm guessing the only reason they're doing that, they're doing the old people instead of the young people, is because they've sort of already set these things into motion and they can't like go back now, basically.
Yeah.
Because you are right. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are so old now, and you see some footage of them from like some of their more recent movies, or I think Ian McKellen just got done doing a Broadway show, and it's like, Jesus. Yeah, I think he fell off the stage at one point.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And they had to use his backup like actor for like a couple weeks. And so yeah, it'll be interesting. But
yeah.
Let me ask you this. Just to pose this question, just put it out there. What does this movie need to do to get Chuck Crane excited, or what needs to happen to get you excited?
Have a coherent story, and I know you really can't show that from a trailer, but like that's what this needs desperately. And that was, like when you had Joss Whedon, just setting things up with the Avengers, that was always like the big, failing of, his first Avengers movie, if you could pinpoint it, is that it was just kind of sloppy, as far as what its narrative was. But given how deep we are into this, like, I don't know how how do you tie the Thunderbolts into this? We'll have to see that movie to know. But and then yet again, we have to see Fantastic Four to really know how they're going to fit into it as well. But Like, what was Doom doing this whole time? It would piss me off deeply if Doom was just some more multiversal bullshit and he wasn't like just this dark counterpart to Tony Stark the whole time as far as the MCU is concerned. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would need. I need all this stuff to, be rationalized in a coherent way, and to like actually make me care about all these, this whole swath of characters that I don't give a shit about. Not like
Yeah.
not just in terms, because like that was always what made picking up a B grade Marvel superhero book or series, like what made them worthwhile, was having creators make you care about them and get invested in whatever it was. Because yeah, like they're not the marquee names that sell, and what sold, like the story's got to come first again somehow in this.
Yeah.
And if I get the inkling that, oh shit, like this is going to be more than just nostalgic hype and it's actually going to be worthy of my time, I'll be excited for it. I am well past the point of just being like, oh god, they're pulling out the thing, like it's a reference to a
Mm-hmm.
comic book story I like. I want this movie experience to, really like make sense, and and to like actually make me give a shit about, Simu Liu, not as an actor, but as the character he's playing. I don't even know who Louis Pullman's is. I don't know who Danny Ramirez is and all this. So like these names mean nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm just gonna like, yeah, like I don't know, like but it will be neat. Like there will be the novelty of being like, what the fuck is Sentry gonna do to Thor? Like that kind of a thing. I want to know like where's the clash gonna happen, and what will be the explanation for these disparate universes finally merging together outside of a Deadpool movie. I guess I do look forward to that, I suppose. But how
Mm-hmm.
about yourself? What do you need this thing to do?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up like needing to care again because what these movies, these more recent Marvel stuff is missing for me is a main character. And
Yeah.
to Tony Stark is gone. Steve Rogers is gone. They were the main characters of not only their respective movies, but also every Avengers movie. Like these are the main characters, and they're both uh dead or just off somewhere in the multiverse. And so here's what needs to happen for me is you need someone that the audience is already endeared to. You need a top caliber actor. You need somebody who can just spout lines and lines of exposition without making the audience's eyes glaze over. And so for me, the answer lies in Benedict Cumberbatch. You
Okay.
know, lock lock that man up for like a new picture deal. He is the new main character. He is the guy who's showing up in everybody else's movies for like 5 minutes. He's the team leader, and you know, Benedict Cumberbatch can do that. He can be the guy. He can be the leading man, and he can be the guy giving all the exposition. He can be the emotional core of these movies. And he had one of the most massively successful post Endgame movies with, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. People
Yeah.
still like the guy. And, if all the theories are correct about Doctor Doom basically being like a Tony Stark from another universe that broke bad, like, imagine how crazy it would be to have Doctor Strange have to like essentially go up against an evil Tony Stark with the history that they have.
Yeah.
As far as like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange didn't like each other because they were both assholes who were, sort of had a heart of gold, and their personalities always clashed. And so that could be interesting, even though I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of Doctor Doom basically just being an evil Tony Stark from another universe.
That would
But
that would be so cheap.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be. So yeah, I mean, lock down Benedict Cumberbatch. People already love the guy. People already love the character. Nobody wants to see like fucking, I don't know. Nobody wants to see like David Harbour as like the emotional core of the Avengers movies, or it's just it's not going to work with any of these newer characters because there's no history there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And because like he's one of the names conspicuously absent in this announcement, right? Unless I missed him.
Yes.
And there is always the possibility that these names that aren't there will show up, even if it is just for a hey, how you doing? But I would hope that he had a more prominent role and they were just holding him back, just to for hype's sake, for spoiler's sake, I suppose. Because yeah, like the dangling chads on a lot of these, post Endgame movies, like we've been flashing some of these unresolved, mid and end credit sequence things that have been littered, throughout this era. One of his is one of them. Third Eye, Doctor Strange. I doubt that he'd be standing idly by, unless he's just been Gordon Freemaned out of this reality for a little bit. You know what I mean? So it would be very nice to have more familiar faces that we had history with, and that we could have some grounding on what the stakes are for them. Cause yeah, like they need to, like, I don't know. And this just might be Hollywood in general. We need to stop forcing Florence Pugh on people. She's good. Yeah. Like we all loved Midsummer. I get it. She is the May Queen, but I've been watching a lot of movies that she's been like in lately, and I just get nothing from her. Like, like whether it's Dune Part 2 or that like We Live in Time or whatever the fuck that movie was. I was gonna talk about it in the watch list a while back, but I struck it because ultimately it's just misery porn, and it was not nearly as erotic as they were hyping it up to be. Like I wanted something transgressive and nasty, and it was pedestrian, and it was a sweet movie, and like it's probably some of her best acting, but it left me unmoved. And she does that a lot, and I haven't seen the fucking Black Widow movie to even know what her character is in this, like let alone David Harbour's character. But like yeah, or even like and everyone's bitching about Taskmaster being left out. Yeah, like the people.
Yeah, how she got deleted from that. She got deleted from that like that scene of all of them like lined up, and so now everyone, and her name isn't on one of these chairs, so everybody just thinks that she's gonna die in the movie, the
Thunderbolts.
what's it called? Yeah, Thunderbolts. And so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, what's gonna happen with that, because they keep doing that stupid thing with the asterisk, at the end of Thunderbolts. And it's so obvious that this team is going to basically become the new like Avengers, or some form of the Avengers, I don't know, West Coast
Avengers Black, or
yeah, something like that. So by the end of the movie, this team is no longer going to be named Thunderbolts. Like that's what's going to happen.
I wasn't even aware of that. You exposed me to information I didn't have before, and it just makes me question everything, and it makes me annoyed. Like we don't need to be so cute with our titles. Just tell us what the fuck we're watching, But then again, it's like they know who their core audience is, which are the people who spend just as much, if not more time, just like analyzing and like theory casting about every little like crumb that they're given, no matter how like how fruitful all that speculation will actually be to what we get. But like that's just the nature of the business. It's what people do, and I don't have the time or the energy for it. But yeah, do you like, of all of the like the unfulfilled end credit sequences, were there any that you found like actually compelling and that you're actually disappointed they haven't gone further with? Because to me, the reality of it is they paid those people and like maybe gave them a nominal contract for future film appearances. And I don't think they're ever going to have Harry Styles in another Marvel movie ever again. You know what
No,
I mean?
probably not.
Yeah.
I think that's the one though for me. I mean, I think that is kind of a interesting idea. I don't know about Harry Styles. I mean, I don't know enough about his acting. I never saw Don't Worry Darling, and um
He was
I don't really know
okay.
much about his acting, but that idea is interesting because he plays the brother of Thanos in his scene, and so presumably he was being set up to be a villain.
Why
And
isn't he
so
purple?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know anything about that character, but just the fact that he is the brother of Thanos and presumably he was gonna like come and get revenge or something like that. And so that probably would have been the most interesting uh, you know, unopened door to me, but I think that's door is gonna stay closed.
And we're never gonna get Jonathan Majors, like Citadel of Ricks, fucking with the
Mhm.
multiverse, which I think is kind of a mercy in retrospect. Shout out to Magazine Dreams finally getting released to
Yeah.
no one's attention. All these like a year later or more, it is what it is, and that's kind of what we're left with this until we get more. We just have to wait and see and pray that they're actually cooking up something worth our time. But there was one dude out there who literally took Tim Dillon's fake business admonition seriously, and for a while there was living high up the hog, fleecing Netflix. And we've talked about Carl Rinch before, back when this story first broke. But now apparently Netflix has clawed back, or at least a judgment to get the money back, what little of it there is. But yeah, how did this develop?
Yeah, so Wrench basically, I mean, yeah, this started 2 or 3 years ago, and if people don't remember, he is a director probably best known for the Keanu Reeves movie 47 Ronin. And he also did a bunch of commercials, very like sci-fi influenced commercials. And he was given $11 million from Netflix to finish his series called Conquest, which has kind of bounced around a lot of studios and different investors for years. And basically what Rinch did was he spent the money on cryptocurrency and stocks, and then with the profits from that, he bought like all these luxury items, including multiple Rolls Royces, all this Art Deco furniture from some famous furniture maker, and probably the funniest to me, the world's most expensive mattress, which is from a Swedish company. It's $500,000. It's from a Swedish company named Hastings, and he actually ordered two of them from Sweden, and he took the delivery of one and then tried to return it, complaining that the mattress was too short, and he was concerned about the sourcing of the horsehair materials used in the construction of the mattress. So yeah. So that's probably like the funniest. This whole story is just ridiculous and hilarious. And basically, what has happened now is Netflix has canceled his project. They have sued Wrench, and now the point at which we're at right now in the timeline is they have won.
Hey, buddy,
They have
what's
won their
going on?
suit for $11.8 million, and they're looking to recoup their investment with um, like private investigators who are looking into Wrench's bank accounts and
Thank you,
his
buddy.
holdings. And Wrench says that he has no money left, and he's spending his time as a professional litigator or as an amateur litigator, basically litigating on his own behalf.
Oh
And
no, never a good
he,
idea. Always lawyering.
yeah,
Yeah.
hmm. And so yeah, I mean, it's a pretty hilarious story. I'd go and encourage anybody to go and look at this. But to me, I think the most interesting, the place where there's the most conversation as far as the story is concerned is, how often do you think something like this happens? Whether it is in a Carl Rinch scenario where people are just straight up ripping off studios, or in like a more professional capacity, maybe they're doing it a little bit better. They're doing a better job of hiding it, because I think this shit happens all the time. And I think that movie budgets are massively inflated to cover like these completely outlandish expenses. And we just only hear about it when people are this sloppy about
Yeah,
it.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
a corrupt nonprofit. The really good
Yeah.
ones, it like there's a series I think called Disclosure, where Sacha Baron Cohen's character, that's literally what his job is running a nonprofit for his rich relatives to like you use as a tax haven for all of their ill-gotten gains. And
Mhm.
if you really know what you're doing, like say Adam Sandler, and it's like, I know I just want to hang out with my buddies and go on vacation and like play around with expensive cars, just because we have the budget for it. Even if it's just for a day, it'll be awesome. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna fucking do that. Or it could be even more sophisticated than that. Like the unless the studio is really going like with a fine tooth comb and be like, did you really need this really awesome, like, to like not just rent but buy this like mobile home for yourself? It's like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
needed it for my production, and now every movie I make, I'll have it. I won't have to buy another. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's about how like how good
Is
you
that you?
are at like fleecing these
Is
studios,
that
because
you?
you could literally just write down like you could go out and buy, like a $1,000 meal at a, fancy five-star steakhouse, and then on your expense report just write like, per diem or something like that.
It's just in a
And
catering budget, you know?
yeah, you don't have to elaborate any further. And I was trying to think, you brought up the Adam Sandler example, and I was trying to think of other examples that where people have maybe done this, but on like a more official capacity, on a less shady but still kind of weird feeling. And what I thought of was when all of the oceans people, the oceans, 11, 12, and 13, when they made Oceans 12, I don't know if you remember this, but basically all of the stars of that movie, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, you know, uh, Casey Affleck, all those guys, they went to the Amalfi Coast um, in Europe, and basically just like had a vacation, like, and then made a movie on the side, made Ocean's 12 on the side. And it was really strange, and it's still like that movie's so old at this point, and it still kind of like sparked something in my mind, where it's like I remember all of like the paparazzi photos of just those guys just chilling for like months on the south coast of France. And um yeah, that's, I don't know, that's just one that pops into my
No,
mind. Who knows if
that one makes sense. It
yeah.
totally does. Because any time that you can convince a studio to let you make a movie on location somewhere exotic and expensive, there's probably something going on there. It's like, couldn't
Mhm.
we just do this in Toronto? Like, is like wouldn't it be cheaper? Like, oh no, no, no.
Yeah.
Like, we actually need to be in this foreign city. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
People
It's like,
won't
why
be.
do you think why do people think that Mike White keeps getting all of these amazing actors for the White Lotus? It's like, um I don't know if you heard about the Sam Rockwell episode, but Sam Rockwell literally shows up for like a 5-minute scene in that show. And it's sort of inferred that he's going to show up again later, but it's like, why did this dude go all the way to Thailand to film like a 5-minute scene? And it's incredibly obvious. And I mean, in some cases, more power to him.
Yeah,
Who am
yeah.
I to say? Who am I to say that they, can't use the excuse to film a movie for a couple days as an excuse to take a trip to Thailand. But it's a little funny, it's a little funky, and you Carl Lynch, you need to get better at hiding your uh your business.
Yeah, I don't think this is quite the same thing, but like the Chronicle director, I think when they were making Fantastic Four Stick or whatever that movie was called,
Yeah.
the like he was just being a professional asshole and like fucked up like this condo he was renting, because
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so like he just was
Yeah.
living like an animal, and it wasn't like on his dime, cause theoretically, because it was in his production company, because they
Mhm.
were renting the New Orleans apartment that they were in while they were shooting there. At least if I'm remembering it right, that's how it worked. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I no that's firing some neuron in my brain that I totally remember that. You're definitely right about that, and yeah, there's probably a reason why that guy doesn't work anymore.
I think he made one movie where it was like syphilitic Al Capone played by
Yep.
Tom Hardy. I think that was like the last credit of note he's had. Bear with me.
Mhm.
Luca dislodged my
Oh,
microphone. There we go. Yeah, so yeah, buddy Carl Wrench, you're a legend. We're never gonna forget you. And maybe someday you can just like make a Twitch based like AI generated version of what, like, are we ever gonna see whatever Conquest is? Are they ever gonna get anything out of that?
I don't think so, because um it wasn't even, from what I understand, it wasn't even like a full, like, it was basically a mini series of shorts. So it wasn't even like there was no um you know story that carried over from episode to episode, and it wasn't even full episodes. They were all shorts, and so I
Oh.
guess, and it was unfinished. The whole thing is unfinished, and so I guess if they wanted to, they could turn it into like a Love, Death, and Robots type of thing. But I don't think it's gonna see the light of day. It probably won't see the light of day based purely on the fact that if they do release it, they probably think that Wrench will like try and countersue them, or will try and
Mm.
come for money or something, or residuals or something.
It's more profitable as a tax write off, as we've learned about a
Yes.
lot of different things. And speaking of, apparently the company that did the Looney Tunes, like the world, the day the world blew up, Catch Up Entertainment, they
Yeah.
have bought the rights to Wile E. Coyote versus Acme, so that movie will get to come out.
Yeah, I heard that. That's really interesting. There's an interesting story there, because I heard that they were also, whatever this catch-up entertainment is, they're also sort of in the process of trying to acquire the back catalog of Looney Tunes stuff also. And so
Wow, that'd be
they
huge.
are, yeah, they are they have some sort of game plan that we're not quite aware of, I think, as far as wanting to own every Looney Tunes thing imaginable.
And you know what? Given Warner Brothers Discovery as we know it today, I think they'd be okay with that. You know what I mean?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah. Mhm.
And something that I was really okay with, moving on to the watch list, because it's on Max. Speaking of, Warner Brothers Discovery, the recent Best Animated Film or Feature at the Academy Awards, Flow is on there, and I can't tell you how much of a breath of fresh air this was,
Mhm.
because you have a film with no dialogue. It's just these, animals existing in this post-apocalyptic world. It's not concerned at all with trying to explain what has happened. It's just like from moment to moment taking you through their existence when this like massive flood just happens to the environment that they're living in, and then how they slowly like build up levels of cooperation, but like realistically as actual animals. Like that's what was shocking about it to me, is that like the dog behaves like a dog, the capybara behaves like a capybara. Their nature, is still relevant. Like it takes a long time for this cat to be okay with the
Mhm.
cohort that it develops over time. But it's some of the most like beautiful animation I've ever seen, and
Mhm.
it's so utterly unique. Like the it's so okay with just having a quiet moment, and like everything, like the name of this film is perfect because it's just the flow of just one discrete sequence into another, and then the introduction of like stakes or abrupt action is logical and welcome, because you can only do so many languid chill out sequences, but this is the like the cottage core of
Yeah.
animation, if that makes sense, because you could just throw this movie on and just have it be your background noise or like visual noise. And so like in some respects I could maybe see why some people wouldn't be able to like have it be their cup of tea, but for me
Mhm.
it was so welcome and cool, and I want more like this.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, it's from what I understand, the whole thing was made in the free like open source software Blender, right?
Correct. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And
So
you
that's
wouldn't,
really impressive.
and for how like detailed and like lush and alive everything is, that is crazy. Because
Mhm.
yeah, like what they used, just the tools that they had, and it's unlike anything else in the market. I like like it honestly reminded me a lot of Scavenger's Reign to a degree, just in like they have that same kind of mindset of, yeah, we're just going to show you some stuff happening, but you're really not going to know why it's important, but just take it in and soak it up, you know
Mm.
it just has a very unbothered philosophy towards like what it's trying to do, instead of insisting on, oh, we have to have time for a quirky unnecessary side character to show their personality, because we have to rationalize them being in this movie for some reason. like
Mhm.
I watched Moana 2 and then I watched this, and holy
Yeah.
shit, like they're like just a world apart in terms
Yeah.
of like what they were trying to do and how they did it. And the whoever, I don't know the name of the filmmaker, like the director of this, but the team that he had and the amount of time they spent making this happen, good for you, Latvia.
Mhm.
May you conquer animation forever. But yeah, like I just don't see this making $1 billion at the box office. It never will. But this was a well deserved recognition that it received.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, really, this should be like the main event of the show today.
Yeah.
But because the back end of Severance's second season had at least like 2 to 3 hours of television that's amongst the best of all time, in my opinion. And I know I'm not alone in saying that, but like, did they actually pull off a successful season 2 here?
Yeah, I think as a whole they did. This was a season of ups and downs, and I think that's in contrast to the first season. I do not think it is as good as season one, just to like throw that out there. But it's by no means bad. Um, this is not a Yellow Jacket situation. I know there's so much like hyperbole out there right now about this show. This isn't a Yellow Jacket situation. This is not a Lost situation. Um, my sort of main takeaway from the show or from the season is before this season started, I was ready for like 5 seasons of this show Now I'm pretty confident in saying that I think they should wrap it up next season. Like there should be a third season and then it should be done. And I think that's because of the direction that the show has taken. It hasn't gone in the way I thought it was going to, and I think the world has become smaller and the focus has become smaller than I thought it was going to be. And so for the particular story that they're trying to tell, I think they have material for about one more season, and I don't really want to see more than that. And majority of the season was great. I think Woe's Hollow will be an all-timer episode. The Gemma centric episode will probably also be an all-timer episode. But then, like conversely, the Cobell episode is dog shit. Like
Oh, I
absolutely
liked
the
that
worst.
one. Like we are
Oh
we are
God,
worlds apart on that episode.
oh man, I hated it. I thought it was like 30 minutes of the 35 minutes of filler, and then the one interesting revelation, of the episode, it doesn't really even end up paying off in like the rest of the show. In that Cobell is the person who invented the procedure, and so um, and with a lot of stuff, you can always say I've been seeing so many people. I'm happy with the amount of answers that we got this season, but anytime you bring up like, oh, they didn't answer this and they didn't answer this, like the comeback, the clapback is always from like the Redditors, the message board users of the super fans of the internet are all just like, wait till next season. They're gonna answer that question next season. You don't get it. It's all gonna make sense after the third season. And it's like you don't know that, and this could end up being a lost situation. We
Yeah.
have no idea. And so um I don't know. I thought that episode was awful, and I thought the episode 9 also, the episode
The
directly
after
after that,
hours.
was very like it felt like they were artificially decelerating the pace of the show because they had to hit like an arbitrary 10 episode like quota, because it's so like everything just like screeched to a halt, and then it like ramped up again in episode 10. And I know there's that scene in episode 9 where Mark like literally stops Cobell when they're like walking through the snow, and he's like, no more bullshit, tell me what's going on. And she just stares at him for a couple seconds, and then it cuts away, and when it cuts back to them, it's like suddenly nighttime, and it's like, okay, what did you do for an hour? Why didn't you tell him anything? Like what? Like there's these little cracks starting to show in
Mm-hmm.
this TV show, I feel like. And I don't know if those cracks are going to give way to anything bigger, if they're going to create fissures, but I'm not ready to make that call yet because I want to see what season 3 has to hold. But yes, I've talked enough. What did you think about this?
Well, there's just a part of me that is, at peace with not knowing, like certain answers to certain questions because I don't need them. Like, and I don't think like they are just there as jangling keys for the speculation industry. The slop industrial complex I was referencing at the beginning. And like in terms of like what I need this show to be and do, it more than largely succeeded. And I think you make good points about, yeah, like why didn't they just give us the straight shit, like in that moment with Cobell, and Mark, like why choose to just bypass whatever her response was unless they're gonna give it to us later in some form? Because like now conceivably Mark has information, the characters have information the audience doesn't have, which is kind of weird, and
Mm-hmm.
it is a little sloppy in terms of the writing and the editing. But like every episode that was directed by Uda Bruskowitz, I can't say her name properly. Yeah, she was the cinematographer on the pilot for The Wire and kind of
Oh, okay.
created the visual language for The Wire. And like she directed the Gemma episode, which itself wasn't supposed to be an episode. The original plan for that was for it to just be these scenes interlayered into like every episode of the season, and that we would eventually, get to the end of by the time we got to the finale. And I'm glad that they just packaged it and gave it its own unique, like little, like, I guess, like, flag in the in the earth in the middle of the season. And they did that a lot. Like, if there's one criticism, is that it didn't have the flow of the first season. It was disjointed, because like Woe's Hollow literally takes us out of the the MDR floor, and that, we have that episode, and then we have the Cobell episode where we don't see any of the other familiar faces. But she was really absent from the season as well up until that moment. And the like in all the, but like I have hope that we're gonna, like, I don't know, I am enjoying the broadening of the scope as our characters get pulled apart from each other. And kind of like with Squid Game 2 season 2, I am like, they have hooked me in to need to see the third season. But like Squid Game, I think you're exactly right. They need to wrap this up. Like, if they try and stretch this any further, it will fall apart. It just needs to organically end. And they're gonna, and in doing so, they are gonna leave some of these questions unanswered. We aren't gonna know why they sacrifice goats in, like, along with whatever the Cold Harbor, like, experiment was. Like, that stuff isn't gonna become apparent or relevant. I might be proven wrong because that's something that everyone's fixated on. But the why of Lumen is far less interesting than just how batshit insane they are and all the other things they could be up to and doing. Like, the idea that you have like 100 people clocking in to work to go to a severed floor and do nothing but learn how to be in this like marching band so they can play for one singular performance when another part of the company fulfills its role. Like I don't know, like the insanity of this company, it like explains whatever questions might go unanswered. They just do shit because it makes sense to this worldview that Kier created and has been like molded as it's become more corporate over the years. And like I want to know what's gonna happen, in the moment immediately after, we end, and they freeze frame. Like, what's gonna happen to the severed floor now that it's in full revolt? How do they clean that out? If they can, like, all they really have to do is engage the Glasgow block on everybody and just say, go to the elevator and get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? That's really all they have to do, but maybe it's more complicated than that. And what's Milchek gonna do? Like, because you see his faith cracking. So like where the what they did for all, like, what's gonna happen to Irving and Radar, wherever the fuck they're going. Are they gone from the show forever? Are we gonna see them, living their new life? Like, who is Irving talking to on the phone? Like, they could wrap up enough of this in one final season. And, because, like, what's the end game? Like, it from like, in season 1, they didn't know that they needed to reveal Gemma's existence, or, like, to get Gemma out of there. So, like, what's the end game now, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's because this season was so much about innie and outie Mark. And I kind of feel like, I mean, that's what the third season is probably going to be about now that they're like in direct like competition with each other, basically for one body.
Yeah.
And so that is probably what a majority of season 3 is going to be about. I mean, it's definitely going to be more of like a love story. I mean, they both have their sort of chosen significant other now, and um, I don't know. I still like. I'm wondering how they're going to resolve that plot. I mean, there's only really two ways you can. You either innie or outie Mark sort of wins out, and the other one like disappears forever, basically, or you find a way to somehow get any Mark out of Outie Mark's body. And it goes back to clones, man. Lumen has the clones, and they're making the clones, and they're gonna put any Mark's mind in a clone body. Like that's like the only way I can think of that this ends like happily,
Yeah.
is that they find a way to put any Mark into a different body somehow, because otherwise it's either going to be it's one of them dies or one of them gets blinked out of existence, I think.
Yeah, because ultimately season 2 is about that dynamic, like
Hmm.
the interplay between one only being able to exist when the other does not, and in the effect that that has on their lives in the outside world and the inside one. And the rubber really hit the road in the finale. It's like I wonder if any of those people, any of those innies inside their Audi's bod, like I don't know if the Audis are going to get out anytime soon. And that in and of itself
Yeah.
should be a scandal. How do you explain hundreds of people just disappearing from the outside world? And since they're Lumen and they're this evil corporation, they obviously can do it. They're powerful enough. But I think, like, if there is an end game to the whole show, it's bringing Lumen down, right? But then
Hmm.
that you're still left with a mess after that. And this is my prediction, since like everyone loves doing it. If they in fact they do end it in season 3, maybe a season 4 if we're really pushing things to the limit. There's like people who sever themselves will they will take they'll just take turns using the body, but they'll get to have actual lives on the inside and the outside. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we are going to share it 50-50, because like you were created, you didn't ask for it, and you have rights and a soul, and you deserve to have as much of a life as the Audis do. And that's going to be like the big like any rights, like that parade moment, that
Hmm.
lie that they're given, like will be like act like that will actually get that to some kind of a degree. Or yeah, they're just going to completely they're going to destroy the practice, it'll get banned, Lumen will get dismantled, and then like I think we're going to run into a situation where like any Dylan is gonna actually be able to just own the body and replace himself and have the life he's always wanted, with the Audi's family and that kind of thing. And yeah, we're probably gonna have a weird Egan baby, with between Helena and Mark Scout to contend with at some point. But really, who is the mother? Like the one who actually goes through the labor, or the Audi. You know what I mean? Like if it happens on the
Yeah.
inside versus the outside. And ultimately that's what keeps my spirits high about this show, is that it still is compelling enough and has so many like really interesting things to say about identity and existence within its high concept. It hasn't exhausted itself, whereas like
Hmm.
Lost exhausted itself after season 3, just
Yeah.
as an example. And they really were grasping at straws to find ways to keep it going. But there's still gas in the tank, but it's about arriving at a destination that's satisfying. And that's where I do have some concern, because whatever I might think up, it's definitely not what they're thinking. And I want to know what they're thinking. And I just hope it isn't
Hmm.
a colossal waste of all of our time. Like I was checking up on Thunder on Thunderbolts, on Yellow Jackets recently, and that show has finally reached a point where it's like like all of the adult version of those characters' concerns about what ever happened in the wilderness getting exposed makes a lot more sense, even beyond the cannibalism, you know?
Okay.
And so, but even then, it's like they took way too long to get there. They wasted a season of that show. They took the wind right out of its sails. And you risk doing that with a mystery box show unless you're very
Yeah.
considered and careful. And thus far, I the Severance crew seem to be considered and careful, but now that it's so popular and is in everyone's public consciousness, they may just get drunk on the success and it'll be doomed to fail.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's so much like hyperbole out there. I'm glad you brought up Yellow Jackets. I actually brought it up when you took your headphones off for a little bit there at the
Yeah.
beginning of this. I brought it up too, and there are people out there that think this show is now like fallen off a cliff like that show did. And it's like, hold on a second. It's
We're not
like
there yet.
we're not, yeah, we're not there. This is still like incredibly enjoyable to watch. It's still like the one appointment TV show that I have nowadays. And like, yeah, we need the whole thing before we can render a final judgment. We need the series, not just the seasons. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, if there's one appointment show that I have left right now, it's Common Side Effects, which did get renewed. We're getting a season 2 of that, which has me excited. We'll have to see how the finale goes for that show, because it was a real banger of a cliffhanger at the end of episode 9. And yeah, so keep an eye out for all that. Have faith, but don't just join a cult in the process. You know what I mean? You got to be careful. Otherwise, you're gonna wind up like Alex Sharfman and think that just because you've made a movie with A24 that you can do no wrong. So take it away, Matt. Death of a Unicorn, the Slaughterfest creature feature that no one asked for, and I'll let you describe it.
Yeah, I mean, we went into today kind of thinking that, there's not much to say about this movie because if there's a way to describe this, it's aggressively mid. Um, it's like if Cocaine Bear had none of the self-awareness and actually thought it had something important to say. It really doesn't know what it wants to be. It's just everything it's trying to do, you can find it being done better elsewhere. As far as like, you want a violent creature horror comedy, go to the aforementioned Cocaine Bear. You want a send up of Big Pharma, try Common Side Effects. You want a skewering of the rich, go watch Saltburn. You want this father daughter like bonding movie, go watch last year's Ghost Lights. What sets these movies apart from Death of a Unicorn is just kind of a laser focus on exactly what they want to do, exactly the message they want to convey. And Death of a Unicorn is just, it's scatterbrained. It's a shotgun blast of these really like boring, time-worn ideas. This would have found a better home as like the streaming slop of the week. The type of movie that's on the Netflix like charts for like 48 hours and then you never see it again and nobody ever talks about it again. And so yeah, it's just like there's not even really that much to say, but it's whatever. I mean, I'm so like, at least something. The last movie we reviewed was Mickey 17, and at least that movie like inspired some sort of discourse or inspired some sort of like any sort of feeling, whether it's good or bad. This movie's just kind of like, I feel nothing towards this movie. I don't think about you at all, as Don Draper likes to say, and it's just like, okay, whatever. What did you think?
Well, you've really identified, the problem. It's like when he was writing this screenplay, he probably just like came up with this idea of what if people run into like a real unicorn, but it's more true to like how they were in myth and they're not just pretty horses and My Little Pony. What if it's a monster? I'm sorry, Luca is pooping, and he's having a hard time because I guess we didn't dose him with Miralax last night.
Oh no!
But what completely made my eyes roll and made me bored with whatever it was trying to do was, I don't need another movie telling me that rich people are vapid, sociopathic, stupid, and evil. Like, we know that. You know, we've seen it done better. Everybody thought The Menu was novel and interesting, and it's because it in the end it kind of was. But like Opus came out, you know, earlier, I guess like a few weeks ago, you know, and that's the John Malkovich movie where he's just like a pop star who just wants to kill critics because they're mean. You know, it's like, it's basically just, it's tired and it's boring, and they need to come up with something more interesting to give us them. And I know that like you do that because you just want people to like cheer as they're bloodily murdered, but it's just this movie didn't offend me or anything like that. It just made me bored, which is the highest crime a movie can commit when in the trailer blurbs it's described as like Jurassic Park on acid, and it's anything but that. Like I am more upset by the amount of people who seem to think that this was a quality film versus the ones who are honest about the fact that this is just slop. And yeah, it might be okay to just like throw on every once in a, like maybe one time, but like this isn't anything special. And and I'm tired of like, and I feel like people just have to act like slop is special these days, and it's not because they're being contrarians. It's like, I think it's an access journalism thing where they just want to be given earlier access to like an A24 movie. So their YouTube show will be like, oh, he said nice things about Death of a Unicorn. We'll throw him a ticket or a link to a screener of, you know, of whatever our latest is. And that offends me. That truly pisses me off, because like this was a waste of everyone's talents and time. This was a good cast in a bad movie. Even though very few of them were giving us something we hadn't seen them do before. Like Will Poulter's whole routine in this. But it was, hey, Taya Leone's in a movie again. That's kind of cool. You know, like, but why
I think it all lies with, you know, Sharfman as a director, because there's a stark contrast to, you know, some of the talent you have on this and then him, because this movie is shot by Larry Fong, who is basically like Zack Snyder's go-to guy, and so it looks great. And the movie is scored by Dan Romer, like a storied film composer, who's done, you know, some of my favorite movie soundtracks out there, including like Beasts of the Southern Wild, and so the movie sounds great too. But then you have this direction that is like, it's just so bland, and it's like you can just tell that the cast were just given like the most bare bones like notes, or like the most bare bones like instructions on what to do. They're not, actors need to be told what to do, and they're not gonna do it if you don't tell them. And that's what it felt like. The characterization in this movie is paper thin, and it's like, how do you make Paul Rudd fail at being charming? Like, I didn't even know that was possible. And it's like, I didn't even hate the like Pharma family enough to like take glee in their deaths. It was just, every time one of them got killed, it just kind of felt like mean-spirited in some way. I was like, oh, this is kind of like gross. And
that's what I mean. It's just, oh, aren't rich people evil? Let's kill them as much as we can in as awful ways as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing. Like, this guy as a producer has been involved with in some movies that I admire, like Blow the Man Down. And what was he doing while like on the sets while those movies were being made? It just makes me question. Like, you're not like, you obviously have aspirations of directing and writing. So like, what are you learning yourself while you're producing? Like what are you
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to? And if this was if there had been another screenwriter involved who was actually credited to like take his concept and like give it actual legs, because it wobbles as soon. And then again, he needed like I don't know, the editor was probably doing their best too, but maybe it could have been saved in the editing. But when it's shot and directed a certain way, there's only so much that they can. And
Yeah.
you know so you get the end result is all on him, because he wrote the words. He was the one saying action and cut and telling people what to do in between, and he wasn't up to the job. So like, what kind of blackmail does this man have? Like what parties was he at, in
Yeah.
in Hollywood, that they'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, go ahead, we're not really gonna have someone to, like, because like if ever whether there was a movie where they should have fired the director midstream and brought in somebody else, it maybe was this one.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah. And I think, I mean, the only reason why this probably got to the finish line with him is because I did see that the budget
Was
was
very
quoted as
low,
being,
yeah.
yeah, surprisingly low with how much like CG there is in this. I think the figure was quoted at about 15 million,
Which
which
is
is very
crazy.
low. And so,
Like,
um,
that's like 90s movie budgets, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And even though this movie is probably gonna bomb, it's probably still gonna make its money back. I mean, even with because it was so cheap, and so I don't think it's gonna be really a too much of a stain on A24's record. I don't think they're gonna care that much,
I
but yeah,
hold it against them, you know what I
I
mean?
do
Like,
too. Yeah, yeah. To me, this is a big blemish. I'm gonna start, my eyes are gonna start, going over here to neon as
oh yeah.
the you know, indie studio du jour for me. If, A24 is kind of losing their luster a bit for me, but yeah, the last thing I wanted to bring up here, because I know we're bumping on a bit of a time limit, is the magical aspect of the unicorns.
Yeah.
This movie could have been a novelty, a gory, fun novelty, if that would have been, if they would have went all in on that, on the unicorns, because as they're presented in the movie, they're essentially super strong horses that have some sort of like ambiguous connection to like another dimension or the afterlife. I don't know. We never figure that out. But yeah, I wanted full on like shitting rainbows and like them turning like unicorns. I think in like myth can go like invisible, and so I wanted them like going invisible and then like reappearing and jumping over like houses and jumping over cars. Like there's all this crazy shit that unicorns can do, like when you look them up on mythology.com or whatever I was doing yesterday. And yeah, they totally failed at that, and they're just like they were just stand-ins for a movie monster. Basically, this movie should have been one of those dumb like Winnie the Pooh horror movie, or like um horror
Yeah.
movie based on all those like shitty horror movies they're doing on like fairy tales
Or like
nowadays, or like
public
Disney.
domain characters.
Yeah, public
Yeah.
domain. Yeah, that's what this should have been.
Like, yeah, because like, you bring up a good point, because like, what would truly be horrifying, like, for like someone like, they were, because like the gore in this isn't impressive after seeing the monkey, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like if someone gets stabbed by a unicorn and then gets turned into a tree, but they go Cronenbergian with it, you know what I mean? Like, they could have gotten nuts and actually lived
Yeah.
up to the promise of Jurassic Park on acid. But
Hmm.
like if this really was going to be Jurassic Park on acid, you kind of mentioned it in the doc, and it was an implication from like what we got in the trailers about like, oh, they have this nature reserve, these billionaires do. And yeah, what if this was just their breeding and hunting ground for unicorns so that they can keep their dynasty, thriving and alive and
Hmm.
in power as long as possible. Like there was so much to this concept that they could have done and just didn't because they didn't have the imagination for it. I say they,
Hmm.
but he in this instance, and it's you just know that like somebody else could have made a better movie out of this pitch. Like he should have just had a story by credit. There should have been other directors involved, not directors, like writers involved, and yeah, and some competent producers to hold it all
Yeah.
together. And we did, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Everything was amateurish. Like there was nothing scary about it. Even though it was a jump scare a second, like you could at least just make it, like what's the word I'm looking for here? Like metaphysically terrifying. Like
Hmm.
they could have done that, and it would have been more successful.
Hmm. Yeah. Give it to Oz Perkins. You brought up the monkey, and Oz Perkins already did a fairy tale horror movie in the Hansel and Gretel movie that he did, which was
Yeah.
surprisingly decent, if I say so myself. And so, yeah, give it to somebody like that, and you have a much more successful movie on your hands.
So look for this when it shows up on Tubi. Or I guess this is going to be on
Yes.
Max because it's an A24 exclusive. Not that they're going to want it, in my opinion. But not moving on to the mentionables. So, we're at the end of the road here. At long last, we have a sequel to Hush.
Yeah,
And is it still Jim Lee doing the art?
it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think I could tell that, but I just wasn't quite sure.
Mhm.
Has it been worth the wait?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is Batman 158. The first issue came out this week of the Hush 2 story arc, and you know, I have a lot of good feelings for Hush because I want to say I don't know this for sure. I might be misremembering, but I think the first Hush was like back when they had the like 2 volume series. One of them was blue and one of them was green, the trade paperbacks. And Hush 1 was, I think, the first trade paperback I ever bought. And so I have a lot of good feelings towards this story arc. And I thought that this first issue of Hush 2, really brought it as far as the story goes. And of course, the art. I mean, it's Jim Lee. Um, his art is timeless. And I'm so glad that he's doing some interiors again. It's
Yeah, no
been
shit.
forever since he's done interiors. And so yeah, it's a great first issue, and I'm sure this will be collected in like 6 months from now or a year from now or something, and you can read it then too. But I really enjoyed this first issue.
So like how is Hush coming back? I thought he was dead.
We're not entirely sure yet. Basically, the sort of overarching story of the first issue is that the Joker is back, but he is like basically playing his greatest hits as far as like his most famous like kills that he's done in like, Batman lore, with like like when he released the like Joker fish into like the Gotham water supply
Yeah.
when they were all like Jokerized, stuff like that. And so for some reason he's like redoing his old crimes, and that sort of sends up a weird um like weird vibes to Batman. He's like, I don't know why the Joker's doing this. And so he's starting to sort of investigate it, and you only really get one panel of Hush in this first issue. And so we're not really sure what's going on with him yet, but yeah, so far I really enjoy where it's going.
Interesting. I'll have to maybe I'll check it out when it's all said and done. I don't think I could handle the suspense week to week. Um my mentionable, I had mentioned, what last time we gathered, it was me kind of hyping the beginning of the trial of Nichole Rice for the murder of Anita Knudsen, her roommate. And if you really want to get taken the full saga, you still can on YouTube through Court TV. They have it broken up into clips. You can watch entire days of testimony if you want to, because I had to, for my job. I just basically was glued to my desk writing all day long. And I was so glad that I could do it that way, because I didn't have to sit through the trial itself directly and then scramble to write something afterwards. I could just build it as the day went on. Like, there were 3 or 4 days during this period where, because my paper's, small, there's not a lot of other content besides what I write. I was having to write like 2 separate bylines to cover different areas. And then the jump page, when you open up the paper, looked like the Wall Street Journal, because I didn't have any photos I could include, because Court TV didn't give me permission to take screen caps, which was too bad. It would have been nice. But basically, this was a hard pill to swallow for the people of Minot, because I'll let this run, because the verdict came in on Wednesday this week. And after 5 hours of testimony, they found her not guilty. And, usually in a trial, if they take a long time to deliberate, it means a guilty verdict isn't as likely. But if they come back quickly, it means a guilty verdict is. So everyone was expecting it. The group chat for all the media people was, what door are they going to be taking her out? But this is how they reacted when they heard, she's obviously crying. Her lawyers are just like hugging and high-fiving people and just going like, yeah, like the Sand brothers, who are interesting characters. I have to say, like, they are fascinating people just in terms of their courtroom presences. One is super polished and like really knows his North Dakota century code. And this other guy is just this gravelly voiced motherfucker who is just always pacing and like playing to the cameras while he's also shitting on them. And what this kind of comes down to, unfortunately, as far as, justice for the victim, is that the Minot Police Department for a really long time has been inept and, and to certain degrees, corrupt, like a lot of law enforcement agencies are, because the prosecution's case rested, like the linchpin of it was the fact that 2 separate people said in 2008, she was drunk at parties with me and told me, after getting really emotional, that she had done it. And that they both said they tried to report it to the police in 2008, but there's no record of that. There's no record of them trying to go to the police at the time and tell their story. So like this all could have happened like 15 years ago had that been correctly tracked and everything. But, as we have been learning about our little, town of 50,000, the police department has issues. And it's entirely possible that people didn't do their jobs. It's also entirely possible that they never reported this stuff and they only came forward after she was arrested a second time. And because the prosecution, they did as good a job as they could, but this was a case that I don't think they were ever going to win outside of Minot, North Dakota. It had to be moved, out of this jurisdiction, because they could not get a objective, unbiased jury. Everyone had an opinion on it, and everybody thought she was guilty. And people in Grand Forks found her obviously not guilty. And so she's free and clear. The double jeopardy, prevents her from being charged again unless there's new evidence that is found and brought. That's the distinction. Sure. Like, you can't try the same case again, but if they find new evidence that is more definitive, then they can, but I don't think they're going to. Like, and so this is the flip end of a cold case investigation finally leading to someone getting arrested. Just because you arrest somebody doesn't mean you're going to find them guilty. Just because you weren't found guilty, it doesn't mean you're innocent. And the prosecution spent so much of their case disproving why it wasn't all the other people that it could have been. They got lost in the weeds and didn't really make the case for why it was her, ultimately. So it was a fascinating thing to see happen live. It was probably the most significant thing I've gotten to write about in my day job and be involved with, because I got hired shortly after she was arrested, and I've been covering this case since the preliminary hearing, and now it's over and I can move on with my life. But like as after the verdict came in, I just kind of sat there and I was just like, well, shit, everything I planned on, typing up, now it's kind of irrelevant. Because like I figured she was going to be guilty. I always knew that it was possible that she wouldn't, but I just figured that she would. But in the Sans closing arguments, I will say, were very compelling. He did a really good job, at least making the case for why there was, like, for all the 300 like items of evidence to say that she was guilty, you could say something about one of them or like multiple of them to make the whole house of cards fall apart, and then you can't find her guilty. Even though you might believe certain other things, you can't believe the main things, or this particular thing would need to be true. And so it was very interesting to actually be this up close and personal with a court TV thing. But it also was totally disheartening to just instantly see like all the attention that it was getting just get flipped to the next case, whether it's Karen Reed or Lori Vallow, like all those YouTubers and like court TV just instantly just moved on with their lives. And it's like, God, what a shitty way to like, to like exist and work, in my opinion. I couldn't do it. Like, the only, there's other things that happen, sure, and like I kind of relate to that to a degree, but like, especially with an unresolved story like this, it's like this is where it ends for the most part. And you feel terrible for her family. Her sister had a Facebook post that was just haranguing Rice and her lawyers and her family over it all. But, the long and the short of it is she has a lot of pain that just got opened up in front of the world, and she didn't get the outcome she wanted. So like I can sympathize with that. And yeah, now, Nichole Rice and her like entire family, like her parents even, I believe, are going to be moving to New Mexico and just getting the fuck out of North Dakota.
It's probably for the best.
It's probably for the best, because like she is the OJ of Minot officially.
Sure.
Well, that kind of, I guess, does it for our show this week. I'm not going to make any more promises about when my freaking minisode is going to come out, because I have no idea when I'm going to, like, maybe now I'll have more free time and energy for it. But you're going to be, doing one coming out on April 7th for sure, about why one take scenes are having a comeback. And
yeah, I just kind of noticed, this is becoming a trend again. These one take, these oneers, as people call them, they're kind of cropping up again. And I'm just sort of wondering, I have a theory as to why I think that is, but yeah, that's what my minisode will cover.
Everyone's just chasing True Detective season 1, man. Everyone just wants to be who goes there. But yeah, go watch Severance, check out Flow, get excited about Avengers Doomsday and whatever the fuck that's going to be. And we will see you all next time. Thank you for watching.
Yep. See ya.